Go.
Hi, my name is Marvin Walters, and this is my story. I'm going to give you some history of the Black Stuntmen Association and the Coalition of Black Stuntmen and Women, only because I am not in the Smithsonian Institute, and when you finish hearing what I have taken out of my history, you'll know why. June 1967. Mickey Gilbert, a white stuntman, stunt coordinator, living in Saugus, California, was preparing to do Cowboy in Africa, a television series starring Chuck Connors. Mickey refused to use white stuntmen to double for black actors, so he put out a call for young Negro men interested in becoming stuntmen to come to his ranch on Soledad Canyon Road in Saugus, California. I was the only person to show up. Mickey Gilbert and Freddie Ward began instructing me in camera angles, camera punches, high falls, and falling to the ground. What I learned from them, I taught to the 10th Cavalry Buffalo Soldiers at Griffith Park, of which I was a member. I worked on my first Cowboy in Africa episode on November 20th, 1967. That was the beginning of my stunt career. While working as a stuntman on the show, Mickey suggested I should start a Negro stunt group. I met Eddie Smith, who worked regularly as an extra down the road on the set of Doc Tari, and sometimes on Cowboy in Africa. Eddie was a fast talker and knew the business. I asked him if he was interested in helping me to form a Negro stunt group. Eddie said he had had the same idea a year ago and discussed it with Cal Brown. However, Cal was not interested. I did not know who Cal Brown was at that time. We decided to form the Negro Stuntmen Association because there were two white stuntmen's groups with no Negro members. Eddie said he had spoken to members of the 10th Cavalry Buffalo Soldiers, but they were not interested. I told Eddie that I was a member of the group and would try to set up a meeting. I asked Leo Johnson if I could bring Eddie to a meeting and introduce him to the men. Leo said he himself was not interested, but I could bring Eddie to a meeting. I took Eddie to a 10th Cavalry meeting. Eddie jumped on top of a picnic table and told the 10th Cavalry members how much money they could make working as extras. And the rest of it is history that you are listening to right now.
Go.
The very first interview and meeting was held at the L. Fig Riding Stable on El Segundo Boulevard. There were about 20 to 30 men at the meeting. I became the instructor since I had been trained by Mickey Gilbert and Freddie Ward, and had been teaching the 10th Cavalry members what I was learning about camera angles, how to throw punches, and do saddle falls. Eddie and I named ourselves the Negro Stuntmen's Association and formed the group at my home on December 9th, 1967 in Altadena, California. These are the original charter members. The following names represent the original members attending the meeting at the formation of the NSA, Negro Stuntmen's Association, on December 9th, 1967 at Marvin Walters' home at 3308 Thurin Street in Altadena, California. Marvin Walters and Eddie Smith co-founded the NSA. The others were charter members or founding members, not co-founders. Number 1, Marvin Walters. Number 2, Eddie Smith. Number 3, Henry Grady. Number 4, Alex Brown. Number 5, Alonzo Brown. Number 6, Earl Brown. Number 7, Doug Lawrence. Number 8, S.J. McGee. Number 9, Leroy Wolford. Number 10, Ron Wright. Number 11, Warren McGowan. Number 12, Perry Fluker. Number 13, Harold Jones. Number 14, Ernie Robinson. Henry Kingi was not an original member of the BSA. Lynn Glasgow was not a member of the BSA until after I had left the group. 1968. In January, we began practicing at the Hoover Recreation Center on 25th and Hoover Streets in Los Angeles, California. Ernie Robinson and I were the only two men with previous military experience at that time. I instructed the men on how to throw camera punches and camera angles, while Ernie and I instructed them in physical training and taught them how to do right shoulder rolls and left shoulder rolls. We trained the men the same way we were trained as soldiers. We went to Sam Jones' home in Altadena, California to learn water stunts, and Ron Wright's home to do high falls off his garage. I invited Ronnie Rondell, Mickey Gilbert, and Glenn Wilder out to the park to see the progress the men were making. I was on location in Cleveland, Ohio, when Eddie Smith called me on April 6, 1968, 2 days after Martin Luther King's death, and asked if I objected changing the name from the Negro Stuntmen Association to the Black Stuntmen Association. I had no objections. In October 1968, I left the group. The group then moved to Athens Park to continue their training. And here's our first original member, Henry Graddy.
My name is Henry Graddy. Graddy is Graddy. And I met Eddie Smith in '65, which after that we wrote. I played music at the Savoy roller rink. Back in '65, he asked me to do I think it was '65. We do a show called Dr. Doolittle. We did Dr. Doolittle, and I kind of got interested in working at the studio. So then he came up one day, he said, man, I'm fit to start a group called Black Stuntmen Association. I said, oh yeah? Another one, your idea. He said, yeah. He said, we having problems with all the whites dubbing blacks on the studio. I said, well, okay. Well, you can put me down anytime you get ready. I'd be like to do that with you. So him and Marvin Water come by the house and asked me would I go out to the park with him and see how, the rehearsal gonna be. So we go out to the park and we rehearse and doing fight scene, falling, throwing one another all around out there. And then a couple months later, he came back. He said, well, I'm gonna start this Black Stuntmen Association, and I would appreciate if you join with us, and so we can cover all the blacks out there on the studio, and the whites won't be taking our job. So then Marvin and Eddie, they got together, and we went to Central Casting and got our card as an extra. And then you get your Central card as an extra, you work in the studio, then you could get to be, work your way up to be a stuntman. And you could.
Tell me about Marvin Walters.
Well, Marvin was a person that, he always was, seemed like he was a office-going person. He was the type of person that he would tell you somebody doing something in this place, we got to take care of that. He said, we can't let these guys, these white stuntmen association take over all our jobs. They out there, just like they be paying down white guys to do black work. He said, we can't do that. He said, they out there got white men doing black women's stunt. We got to get somebody to do that. And he was the type of person that he stood up for the studio. I mean, he got really, he got blackballed out there at the studio.
I'm gonna have you repeat that because it actually came out. He stood up for the studio.
He stood up against the studio.
Okay, so I'm gonna have you say that again. Let me just read back to you something. Marvin was the man up front. He was blackballed for a lot of work. He was blackballed for a lot of work by standing up for the black stuntmen. He got pushed. I feel bad for him because he did a lot to help blacks. And once he stepped in, he got left behind. I had to take my hat off to Marvin. He stood up more than Eddie. They tried to kill Marvin. Eddie Smith went around to getting people, but Marvin did all the fighting. When he showed up on the set, the producers and everybody got nervous because they thought he was going to do something. Marvin, and they started saying Marvin better keep his mouth shut. So I just want you to kind of retell some of that, starting with Marvin.
Oh, wait a minute.
Speak from your heart.
Alfie said, what you said? What started?
Just talk a little bit about Marvin and Eddie, and how Marvin was blackballed and how he just kept fighting.
Yeah. Marvin, he come on. I mean, you know, you be working on a set, and Marvin would show up on the set, and the director, producer, and all of them, the first AD, they would get kind of nervous because Marvin was a person that he stood out. I mean, he walked up to, I mean, he see something going on the studio that wasn't right. He would speak up and tell them, you know, hey, y'all can't do that. You know, if you do that, you're gonna hear from this person. You're gonna hear from our agency about that, because it's not. You can't you can't have no white people dubbing black. You can't have no white dubbing black women. We got stuntmen, black stuntmen. We got white black stunt girls to double them now. And Marvin was, you know, he did a lot of work behind the scene where he would make sure that you had your job, and he got blackballed. He got threatened. People told him he can't work their show because he would start something on the show, and it's just like you said, like people said, dog get dog out there. You know, you really have to watch what you're doing at that time. Now I guess it's a whole lot different. Yeah, I went out. The Black Stuntmen had a meeting with the Channel 9, trying to explain to them how we could better ourselves as stuntmen. We had a meeting with this Channel 9. We had a meeting with MGM. We had a meeting with Warner Brother. We go on the show, on the set. You know, like Marvin would say, "Well, okay, we're gonna meet this person." One of the producer at Universal Studio, and we want this amount of people to go, and Marvin he was always the person, seemed like, would stand up and front the people, and when he fronted them, you know, they like I say all the time, when he fronted them, they were saying, you know, this man, he could get us in trouble. And when Marvin walked on the set, I mean, if he didn't get what he wanted to, he would always tell him, say, well, if y'all didn't do exactly what I wanted, y'all will hear from the NAACP, EEOC. EEOC.
However, from the riots of 1965 in Los Angeles, the business began to open up to some degree. And Eddie came to a group of us that was in the cavalry and said, look, we need a Black Stuntmen Association because they are now painting down white guys in the motion picture business to do black stunts. So Eddie and Marvin got together. Marvin and Eddie had been in the business before we were. And a lot of us hadn't been in it, but we didn't know a camera from you know, a snapshot. But the two of those guys said, look, we need a black stunt group. So it kind of matriculated or escalated from being in the cavalry. Some of the guys from the cavalry was interested and some wasn't. So the ones that was interested in doing stunts came to get into a Black Stuntmen Association, which was formed in about 1967 with the leadership and encouragement of Eddie and Marvin Walters. Especially, it's a lady here now that's working with us and who's been very, very helpful to us, Tony Vaz. This lady has stories that you would not believe about the times that she had done running from lions, running out of huts on fire, and they would give her a drink and a bump. A bump is what they call $10 just to fall down. It was a lot of other people came along with her that we are really standing on their shoulders because they had kind of sacrificed themselves long before, but they didn't know which way to go. But with Eddie and Marvin, and they said, we coming in here and we're going to make a difference. A paint down is where they would take a white guy, put black makeup on him to, at the time it was Mantan Moreland. I'm telling you how far back they was doing these things. They would paint somebody down to do stunts for him, paint him down, dark face. It was like one of those minstrel kind of things, and use him to do things that blacks should have been doing long years ago. But that was something that really, really irritated Eddie and Marvin. It just made, those guys came along before us, and they said, we need to stop this right away. But we, as the black representatives of the Black Stuntmen Association, we were having a lot of meetings at different studios, and one of which was the MGM. And Marvin at some point probably could elaborate a lot more than this because I can't remember a lot of the studio heads because Marvin was very particular about the heads of studios. And I told this man, I know you blowing smoke. I said, you know, we were at MGM at this point, and the big line was their big logo. And I told this man, I said, you know what? You all would rather give us the line off of that front of that building than to give us a job. And he looked, you know, and I think that was the beginning of some real realization that these guys are not going anywhere. And Marvin and JD stayed at MGM. They began to stay there as monitors at MGM. Not only did they look out, again, not only did they look out for black stunt people, Marvin and JD did a wonderful job. They were monitoring everything from janitors to people in the cafeteria to getting a stunt job. When this thing started, it went a lot further than black stunt people, you know. And Marvin and JD stayed out there for a lot less than what the guys was getting doing stunts. I don't know what their monthly salary was, but it was pittance according to, you know, what people was getting. But because of our efforts and Marvin and JD's and them monitoring at MGM, that things changed out there. JD worked quite a bit after she stopped, but you know, these two people more or less sacrificed a lot for the whole stunt community because Marvin was working. JD was a very good stunt woman, and they kind of sacrificed themselves to the degree to where if they hadn't done the monitoring, they could have been out there working a lot more than they were. And you know, when you're out at the forefront, you have to pay the price sometime, and sometimes the price is not very good, and you have to do what you got to do. So these two people, along with the rest of the group, you know, getting back to my part of the doing fire guy, Marvin Walters hired me and 4 other guys. We went to Belize, Honduras to do a movie called Dogs of War, and we had a lot of war scenes. And we, myself and another guy named John Ashby, was sitting in a bunker getting ready to do some explosions, and it's like a little trigger you have. Get started again here. I'd like to back up again and go about a job that Marvin had and hired 4 or 5 of us to go to Belize, Honduras. Anytime you go out of the zone, they always want to try to hire you non-union, and you get a bigger salary, but they don't want to pay you the residuals, so they'll double pay what the weekly rate is. But Marvin negotiated a contract for us that was almost better than being in the union because we got double scale, and he negotiated workers' comp in the event that we got hurt over there.
My name is Henry Kingi, K-I-N-G-I.
And talk a little
bit. And the movie Hello Dolly was being shot on the lot of 20th Century Fox. We were sitting on our horses, and Eddie said, okay, we want to start a black stunt group. Eddie's on his horse, he pulled up and he says, okay, who wants to be a stunt man, and who wants to come out? And some of the other guys got all indignant. They were the Buffalo Soldiers, and they were going to stay Buffalo Soldiers and stunt thing. They didn't know nothing about that in the movie business. They didn't care about it. They had their jobs and they wanted to stay in that. And so a little argument got going amongst some of the guys. So Eddie jumped up. He said, all right, whoever wants to make money, come over here. And whoever just wants to play horsey, go over there.
My name is Willie Harris. That's Willieharris. And I met a lady named Archie Tatum, and she was telling me about Calvin Brown, double Bill Cosby. So I said, well, what do you know about Calvin Brown? She said, we grew up in Grambling together. We went to Grambling College together. And if you want to meet him, I'll call him. So he came over. And when he came over, we talked, and that's when he started telling me about they were going to start the Black Stunt Group. And that's how I met Eddie Smith, Alex Brown, your dad, Joe Till, Hal Jones, and Henry Kingi, and all of them at Athens Park. When Calvin told me about the BSA, and I came out and all that stuff, I had never seen anyone do a stunt. I didn't know what a stunt was. I had watched TV as a kid with cowboys and all of that stuff, but I didn't know what a stunt was. So we started training. Then, the irony of this part of the story, a friend of mine asked me for a ride one night. And I gave him a ride over in West LA, and I got lost. On my way trying to find the freeway, I saw all of these lights. So I stopped to ask somebody for the direction. And they were shooting a movie called Bob and Cal and Ted and Alice. So I'm standing there, and this guy walks up to me, and he started talking. He started looking. He said, how tall are you? I said, I'm 6'8". He said, why you ain't playing basketball? I said, well, I got bad knees, and I just got out of the military, and I don't have a job, and on and on. So he said, you don't, huh? He said, well, what are you trying to do now? I said, anyone give me a job, I'll take it. So he said, you want to get in the movie business? I didn't say nothing about the stunt group. I said, yeah. He said, well, tell you what, come up to not Warner Brothers, Columbia Studio. I think it was on Sunset and Brunson. What was it? Okay. And he said, I'll leave a pass at the gate for you. So I went up there, and I got my pass and went in.
Okay, let me go back 1 second. A couple of things. Do you want to change the name of the street, say Sunset and Ogden? And then I want you to do the reveal. That was Elliot Gould, actor,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you got to do that reveal.
Okay. As we were standing there talking, he asked me what was my name. And I said, Willie Harris. So I said, what's your name? He said, Elliot Gould.